Hey guys, welcome back to the Bucket Think Tank for another round of Comic Chat. We're getting right into it with Dark Knights of Steel issue 12, or as I call it, we just sort of ended it, didn't we? It's kind of it. So, if you recall, this is a book that we've had a love-hate relationship with. Like, the setting, I feel, is great. The characters are sort of interesting and well-placed, but the story itself is just sort of lacking. Like, it's all so, for the most part, straightforward. There's some clever ideas, some clever turns here, but the steps we go to don't quite work. And I feel like if we're telling a story like this, we need to embrace the fact that this is an out-of-continuity story and do some out-of-continuity things for these characters. So anyway, let's get right into it. So, our story starts, or continues, I guess, with Amanda Waller going to meet Protect, saying, hey, it's time. I need you to own up to agreement we made. So yeah, it turns out Amanda Waller can't be trusted. Big surprise, right? She's been working with the White Martians to protect her kingdom. Okay, sure, gotcha. And Protect's like, okay, so here's the problem. We Martians are weak to fire, all right? And that entire kingdom is lit up like a Christmas tree. What are we gonna do? They're like, look, I got you, all right? I got a guy on the inside, all right? You're gonna take care of that, all right? You just come in, do your thing, and we'll go from there, all right? And Protect's like, all right, let's do it. So, meanwhile, Lois, Constantine, and Harley are trying to show off the fact that they are really great advisors, even though in reality, only one of them does any investigating, one of them has any real counsel to give, and Constantine is like, I have made a bunch of mistakes today. But anyway, they have a plan, they got a strategy, they got a whole sort of countermeasure to deal with these white Martians. And how do those plans going to work? Well, because it's not their plan. It is actually Bobo T. Chimpanzee, alright? Detective Chimp is here, and this is his plan. He's ironing out the finer details and, just discussing it. And so, this is the direction we're going in. And they're like, yeah, Constantine still feels bad, like, hey, you know what, this is my attempt to sort of make up for what I did. And Bob was like, yeah, that was a stupid thing you did. Let's go. So anyway, turns out Waller's plan was to get Captain Cold, who is apparently a wizard. The wizard Captain Cold is gonna put out the fires. I'm like, okay, that'll do it. So now the White Martians begin their onslaught, so to speak. And the onslaught is pretty standard. This is no great showcasing of either the White Martians plan or the combination of the Amazons, Kryptonians, and the Children of the Kingdom of Storms. It's just sort of, hey, we're fighting. The White Martians have kryptonite blades, which will, do the thing. And Alfred, embracing his new, after having revealed that he is, John Jones, a Martian, says, good luck out there, guys. He can't go out there because of the fire, but, yeah. And Bruce sort of embracing, you know what? We'll see you soon, Alfred. I like that, this whole change hasn't really affected their dynamic, and I love that. So they go out there, they go to engage, and, this is the problem. It's all so straightforward. I'm like, yeah, we're going in. Diana's like, okay, so you're the one that killed... Which one of you killed my mother? Which one of you killed my mother? Alright, so you're on my list. Alright, so they go off to a mountain a la DBZ style, and let's go to an abandoned wasteland. There we go. And it turns out the real reason they came here was because of the volcano. So using a little Kryptonian brute force, a little bit some other stuff, they activate the volcano, which drops the old fire and brimstone down. And then a little bit more, I don't know what's in that barrel, but it either I guess it's oil. They didn't set themselves on fire. Alright, so now they can just naturally start killing these Martians. And Diana even kills the Martians that said she killed, the one that killed her mother. So have it serve as a cautionary tale to anyone that comes down here trying to invade. Let them know what'll happen. And Diana wants to kill Protex, but Kara's like, no, you don't have to do this. You can show that we're better. I'm like, you killed all the other ones. I get it. The war's over. You don't have to kill anyone. But then, Lara comes in with the Phantom Zone projectile. Okay, we're going to send you to the Phantom Zone, and we'll call it a day. I'm like, well, is that better? Is it? I don't know. It's up to you. Meanwhile, um, Alfred goes to meet Waller and Dash. Like, hey, let's see you guys at the battle. Where were you? Don't bother saying anything. You know I'm Martian, right? I can read your minds. And he's like, yeah. So Waller's like, oh, that sucks. And she kills Alfred. And it's the shock. I guess he sent a message to Bruce, or I guess Bruce heard it. We're not quite sure, but this is where Bruce learns to fly, so that's cool. He goes in, and he comes in just in time to see Alfred dying. Waller, being quick, just decides to kill Deadshot, saying it was Deadshot. He did it. He did it. So apparently Alfred didn't send a message. Waller killed me, or maybe he did. And in Bruce's grief, he's still playing off to the fact that Amanda Waller can't be trusted. Who knows? Anyway, we then come to the celebration, the signing of the proverbial tree to make it all good, nice, and Laura wants Bruce to be king. Because if you remember, way back, it turns out that Bruce's father is Jor-El. Alright? So he's half Kryptonian. And in Laura's mind, as well as in Jor-El's mind, this was the best way to go. Alright, bridge the two families together, have it go there. You know, we could do this through marriage, but, you know, Kara's playing for the other team, and you don't play for the other team. Kal-El doesn't play for the other team. No one wins that way. So, you know what? You just have to be king. Alright? And he's like, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. He goes full Jon Snow on us. I will do what I can, you know, for the throne, but he won't sit on it. I'm like, okay, admirable. Meanwhile, the advisor's like, you know what? There's probably still stuff out there. So we need to, like, work a treaty. We all unite. We're all in. We're all together. There we go. Alright? Because there's other threats coming. There's Atlantis. There's some metal stuff. League of Assassins. Like, pretty much everything else in the DC universe is still out there. So, Bruce resolves that he's going to go out and travel the world for a bit. You know, try to understand who he is in this new world. You know, learn some more skills. And Kal-El is sort of of the opinion that, you know, you will be king one day. Like, I ain't doing it. And Kyle's going to go off with Diana. Oh, is it Laura? I forget what they named her. Anyway. They shake hands like bros, and we go from there. And the treaty is all signed. And, you know, they formed the League. And the story also mentions that, you know, something's coming soon. And that's how the comic ends. Ultimately, Dark Knights of Steel is not as good as it looks. I think that's the best way to sum it up. There are great individual moments, but the story in itself just doesn't work in some places. Like, and maybe, again, I think I've said it before. I definitely have said it before. Maybe I'm too married to the idea of Marvel 1602, which I always wanted from Dark Knights of Steel. I want it to be that. And it's not like these characters are bad, but this story is sort of lacking in scale. Like, we don't see a lot of interesting places. We see, like, this is Themyscira. This is it. This is the castle of the Kingdom of Storms, alright? Nothing else is there. Alright, we don't really see much of anything. And maybe this story is just supposed to be the proverbial entry point into this weird world that Tom Taylor's creating. And we'll see more. Because at some point, we will see more likely Commissioner Gordon, Barbara Gordon. We'll see, I think we do see Perry White in this story. We'll see, we'll see Darkseid at some point. We'll maybe get the actual Green Man, you know, the Green Lantern Corps. That'll be cool. We'll see Zatanna. We'll see a thief in the form of Catwoman. You know, the sky's the limit. We'll see Cheetah. You know, we'll see that. And this story here is just supposed to be a very easy to access point. And I think what really killed this story was, I don't think they were delays. I think it was just a horribly scheduled book. This should just come out 1 month after the next. But Tom Taylor's doing a bunch of other stuff, and if anything, it did feel like this was sort of like his least important story. Because I think he did another Deceased at this time. He's still working on Nightwing. He tried to make Superman Son of Kal-El. Tried to make John Kent interesting when he didn't need it. And then he tried again with bringing him to the Injustice world, where John seems to learn a lesson that he should have learned, but I don't think it was... Whatever. Like, Tom Taylor, his best work has always been his out-of-continuity stuff. His Nightwing is too safe. Like, I think he understands how Nightwing sounds. I think he understands the characters, but he doesn't seem to want to really push his characters. Um, with Superman Son of Kal-El, I think his John Kent is his worst stuff. All right, he does not really seem to want to push the envelope with anything, even with the messages he wants to convey. He just wants to say, "This is right," and that's all there is to it. Here, he had something where he should have done something along the lines of DC's or his Injustice work, and he sort of likes the world more than the story of the world, in my opinion. He likes reworking these ideas, these White Martians, the reworking Poison Ivy, the Teen Titans, the League of Assassins. He likes refitting that more than I think he likes telling that interesting story. But again, maybe this is just early days for the story. And in the next Dark Knights of Steel, which I don't know why they call it Dark Knights of Steel. All right, they just could have just called it Steel, but no, that would no. DC Steel. Kingdom. I don't know. Go from there. I don't know. This isn't bad, but ultimately wasn't really worth the time. I think that's the worst part about it. But anyway, we got other stuff to talk about. My hotkeys are messing up. Okay, so alright, Teen Titans issue 2 by Mark Waid. Alright, so we're giving this another issue, especially after that disastrous Hawk Girl book. Oh, less was said about that the better. But anyway, with Aqualad, Bumblebee, and Wonder Girl, well, this story is about Aqualad, Bumblebee, and Wonder Girl, and Aqualad and Bumblebee go to meet Donna, and after meeting her roommate, which Aqualad's a bit weird about, because he said, like, yeah, she's just getting dressed, can I help you? I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Aqualad's like, what do you mean my girlfriend's just getting dressed? Who are you? Like, I don't know. I get it. We're subverting expectations here. But still, so she introduces her roommate, and like, yeah, you know what, it's just easier and whatnot. His name is Mal Duncan, and he works, he pulls in funding for youth groups dealing with troubled kids. Bumblebee is like smitten with him already, and it's just sort of weird. Garth is like, okay, so what is this? It turns out she's just crashing on the couch. It's all fine. It's all dandy. And it's sort of weird. But anyway, Donna talks about how much she likes being in man's world, in this new world. She likes the sights, the sounds, the noises, whether it be guitars, sirens, and one more important thing that this world has that Themyscira didn't is children. Alright? And their laughter. So it's an interesting way to look at it, to see how different Themyscira is from the rest of the world. Because remember, there are no children on Themyscira. Alright? Remember, they made Diana in that continuity. New continuity, even then, she was still an oddity. Apparently, it's weird. But anyway, Garth seems to be like warming up a bit, like, alright, this was still weird, but I'm okay. Anyway, they get a call from some other Teen Titans, from Lilith and Gnark, coming like, hey, there's this teenage girl, she's got some psychic powers, and they're manifesting pretty badly, and she's locked herself in a room. Alright, so they go in. Well, first of all, they all decide who to go in. And Robin is like, I'll stay here as be the point man from the in-between. Alright, so Roy, Donna, and Garth, you three go out and go in, try to find her, calm her down, and the rest of you will go down to the school and find out more about her. Alright, so they go in, and Aqualad is met by a bunch of mirrors. Roy is met by a school, and Donna is now in Themyscira's Themysciran Palace. She's met by Queen Hippolyta, and they all sort of accuse her of, like, abandoning the people. She's disappointed. She's dirtied herself by going out into man's world, and she points to, look, you told me to go there! And it's a really traumatized moment. I think it also speaks to Donna's life, that she does feel that in some way, as much fun as she's been having, she does feel that she has betrayed her upbringing. and her people by coming out there. Roy is met by what appears to be a bunch of weird shadows that he can't seem to hit with his arrows. They keep knocking him down, and he's scared. Um, anyway, when they get to the school, all right, they meet Vicky. Vicky, Dalzay's best friend, who apparently is non-binary, which is cool. Well, not cool, it just sort of is. This, I think, is a great example of how we do these characters. Not to say they can't be center stage, but there's nothing over the top about this character. Like, there's nothing about non-binary people that says that you can't just, hey, it's a non-binary person, go from there. All right, but anyway, they said Dolly wasn't, what's the word I want to say here? Dolly's powers developed around, around puberty, a couple years ago. She found out that she could read minds, and it became a bit of a problem because when you can't control your ability to read minds, it means you can't turn it off. Think of like super hearing, all right? You can't stop it. You can't stop people, and this is from people's minds. So instead of hearing everyday conversations, hearing people's private thoughts. And it's getting worse because it keeps getting stronger. So every now and then, so before she was able to somewhat tune it out, but now her powers are growing, and now she's projecting her thoughts out onto people, and it's just embarrassing. Imagine having your private thoughts just bombarded by into other people's, just sort of screamed at to other people. Your private thoughts. All right, that is messed up. Meanwhile, the nightmares or whatever they're in is getting worse, and Garth figures out what's going on. Like, no, think about it. All right, it's rejection, bullying. This is all what teenagers go through. In other words, it's all going through. Every single thought in her head was just spilling out. Every embarrassing fear, every shame, every deep dark secret, everything. The whole school could hear it. All right. So everyone thought she was screaming. But no, it wasn't out loud. It was through her brain. So Garth is able to find his way through. Like, he forces his way through all of it, and he finds her and he talks her through. Like, look, you're not a monster. All right. These powers don't have to control you. All right. Let me tell you right now. My mother loved me. All right, but I still always felt like I was a monster. All right. But I was still able to get through it. And he started telling himself that he was worthwhile. It sounded fake at first, but he kept hard, he kept at it, and he had to work at it, and he still does sometimes. All right. And I'd like to help you, and would you like me to help you? And it goes through. I think its simplicity is its strength here, and I do like that. So we go through. We're all feeling great. Well, everyone's feeling great, but Donna. Apparently, Donna is still sort of messed up by what she saw out there. And it's sort of interesting, I think, because for Garth and Roy, this is stuff they've always had to deal with, but Donna isn't quite used to it yet. I think she's always had this sort of confidence to her, this sort of well-earned strength in herself and her abilities and in her experiences. But I think what she's gone through, these sort of bits of doubt, is stuff she hasn't bothered to really come to terms with, where I think Garth and Roy have sort of had to deal with them anyway. Anyway, this is all thrown to the rug because guess what? They've all been invited to Titans Con. All right? I was like, what? What? Well, what is what Robin's saying, and I love it. Everyone else like, wow, all right, we've been invited. All right, to Titans Con, July 3rd to the 5th at Metropolis. And that's how the comic ends. Ultimately, Titans issue 2 is solid. I think that's the best way to sum it up. I think for someone who may be a bit more familiar with the Titans, this is, I think, a bit more welcoming. For me, it's a bit more informative. This was going to have to end up being my default version of Donna Troy for a while. Granted, the more you know about Donna Troy, the less of a deal breaker that is. Roy, I haven't seen Roy much. I've never been a Green Arrow fan. Working on it, but he's never a book I'm excited to read. So there's that. I like we pulled away some of our more prominent members of the Titans. We pulled back from Robin. We pulled back from Flash. We pulled back from, well, that's kind of it. but we kept the focus on maybe these not lesser known but lesser accessible Titans, the ones who haven't had a book or been in a book. For like everyone knows Robin, everyone knows it's Dick Grayson. Everyone knows Dick Grayson. We all know exactly who he is. All right, this Dick Grayson is a bit different from the Nightwing we'll know, and that makes perfect sense. He's not Nightwing yet. Roy is, I think, the more gung-ho. Like, Roy, I think, has the appearance of the leader I think people want. Sort of, enjoying it, having fun. But as it's pointed out, they don't quite trust Dick. They don't trust him. They don't even know his name, so they don't trust Robin. I like the fusion they sort of try to go with, a combination of Tim Drake's clothes, which have been the standard for all Robins now, at least the past Robins, and the Titans era cape. So I like that. I like that Garth was center stage. A lot of this story was about Garth's perspective, despite how much Donna Troy talked. We see Garth isn't that comfortable on the surface. He loves Donna, but he's still not quite sure how any of this works. It's all new territory to him. And I don't blame him for being like, who are you? Whose man is this? All right? I don't, like, what do you mean my girlfriend's getting dressed? I don't, it's weird. It's weird. Overall, though, fun. I'm not really excited for the Titans Con story, if that is going to be the story. More likely it will be. But I think it will help cement what this story kind of is. And finally, we have, I felt, a very good story. Superman Annual, Dawn of DC. So, for those of you that don't know, an annual story can be one of a couple of things. It can be totally unimportant. Totally unimportant. They'll get another writer to do it, and just do it. It's more like, hey, we've reached this sort of milestone with the book, so let's tell some stories here. Annuals tend to get shorter and shorter, like the spaces between them, so they don't quite feel earned as much anymore. Sometimes they can pick up on loose threads from other stories. I think a good example could be Scott Snyder's annuals, or they can be used to talk about something that just fleshes out the world. Also, like Scott Snyder's annuals, like Scott Snyder, I think, did a very good annual about the police during the height of during the height of the Trayvon Martin stuff, during the not George Floyd, Freddie Gray, the hands up don't shoot thing in Ferguson. I think he did a very decent story with that. He wasn't really, I didn't feel like he was trying to preach, just sort of like, hey, this is a story of how it is for Gotham to deal with the police, and Batman dealing with the police in his early days, as well as these other neighborhoods and these kids. I think that was a very good story. Your annual can also just sort of help flesh out the world itself, and that's what this story is doing here. It's helping set up some more pieces and go from there, which I think is good. So anyway. Okay, so Lois is kind of not in the mood right now. All right. So she's hearing what her reporters are working on. It's all the normal stuff, and she's like, you know what? That's all lame. All right, I get it. You're all so good at what you normally do, but you know what? Everyone, you're gonna switch your roles right now. All right, Steve, you do sports now. Right now, you're gonna interview Livewire. Kat, you do I forget what you do, but you're gonna go with the chief. Ron, go interview the Housewives producers. All right, Lisa, you go to Supercore. Trish Q, you look into who would run for mayor. Eric, I need your help here. And I can't believe I'm say this, but do what I would do. And it's like, you know what? Go. I like this direction for Lois. Lois, as the editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet, to me, is the coolest thing for her character to do. All right, I think people want to be a superhero. Like, no, Lois has always been a superhero. All right, she's been this boots-on-the-ground journalist, exposing corruption, unafraid to speak truth to power, unless that truth is her husband, and just go from there, or her son, and I think seeing her here, granted, this is not the most flattering image of her, but I get it. This is Lois in charge, pointing. She ain't got to look pretty. Look, the power is sexy. All right? The power is sexy. So, she's going in. All while this is going on, Superman is fighting Toymaker. I love it. It's like, look, at some point, we'll tell that story too. But right now, we got other stories to do. We are a newspaper, damn it. Go get some news. All right? And I like the idea of taking her reporters out of their comfort zone. Like, you know what? Get this fresh perspective. Get this new direction on it. All right? You all know how to interview people. You all know how to find a story. All right? Get out of your comfort zones and go. So, This is what leads to the name of the story, City of Secrets. Because Lois is also frustrated by the fact that it turns out that Lex was a superhero in Metropolis, and there's been no reporting on it. No one reported on that story. So that's been going in. So Kat goes to with Jimmy to Supercorp. Remember, Supercorp is a company that it's LexCorp, given to Superman, with Mercy as the lady in charge, like, as the run of the day-to-day operations. And so one thing they see is Parasite. Parasite is working at Supercorp. People are like, what the hell's Parasite doing here? And everyone's like, this is the real ploy by LexCorp. And actually, like, no, we're giving him a chance, which Superman would want. He's got a little bracelet, which gives him a steady supply of food so he doesn't go crazy. Remember, Parasite's problem is he has this unending hunger, which forces him to feed. Alright? He does stuff he doesn't want to do. He's driven outside, essentially, out of his mind by his desire for food. It doesn't excuse his behavior, but helping us understand it means that we can hopefully find a way to, correct it and help make him a functional member of society. So that's what he does here. His bracelet gives him a steady supply of energy, so he doesn't go crazy. So there we go. And I think what's interesting about this direction is that it doesn't really quite matter. Or well, it does. It's great and all. Jimmy's a bit skeptical, but as Mercy points out, well, considering what we did for your girlfriend, Silver Banshee, I think you'd be okay with it. But Kat brings up an important part here. Mercy, what about you? So for those of you who don't know, Mercy has been Lex's right hand for years, alright? The stuff Mercy knows could bury Lex, alright? If they ever need, like, state's evidence turned again, they would go to Mercy. Like, look, she knows. She knows, alright? So the question is, what is her story? Why is she here? Why is she doing what she does? Why is she working with Lex? Why is she alright working with Superman? If she's a die-hard Lex fan, if Lex can do no wrong, why is she working for his greatest enemy? Alright, just because Lex said so? The question is, what kind of henchman is she? Is she like Bellatrix Lestrange in Harry Potter, where, the Dark Lord can do no wrong? He can do no wrong! Oh, that is not a good image of me. Or is she more like a Davos Seaworth? Like, I'll follow Stannis Baratheon anywhere, alright? If he does something wrong, he's going to trust that if I disobey his orders, it came from the right end. Still sends me to die, but, that's Stannis Baratheon. And she even points out that, she must be some kind of machine to deal with all of this as well as she does. Like, Mercy does not stop. And so Jimmy's like, oh boy, it's getting a bit heated here. And as Mercy tries to get it back to the tour, it then evolves to, hey, there's a little parasite running around. Everyone thinks it's Rudy. Like, Rudy, damn it, what'd you do? And Mercy goes, okay, so you know what? Whatever I tell you guys now is off the record. Her arm turns into a gun. This is from Lazarus Planet, so it points to the writers for wanting to keep that a thing. I wouldn't have kept it, but you know what? She looks good doing it. So they get ready to shoot it because they think it's Rudy. And it turns out, no, it's not me. It's not me. It's one of his, like, offshots from the whole story where Parasite broke into multiple parasites. And he reveals that this thing isn't a monster. It isn't here to hurt anybody. He's just hungry. So he lets it feed off him for a bit. And he's all good. He asks if he can keep him. And it's a yes. So, like, you know what? There we go. Jimmy gets the picture. And we're all good. So, Steve Lombard, who is also a mainstay, like everyone we've seen in the story here, is a mainstay in the Metropolis life, in the Daily Planet life. Steve Lombard is, how I want to say it, maybe a douchebag is the right word, but he's a harmless douchebag. All right, he takes his job seriously. If it doesn't work out, he tends to want to leave, and he's good at sports. But he was told to interview a prisoner. And he's like, yeah, she didn't want to talk to me. So I left. He's like, look, I can't force her to talk. All right? And it's not what he likes to do. So he's like, yeah, I came back. And look, Chief, if you want the mouthy broad to talk, you might have to do it yourself. And Laura's like, good idea, Steve. All right, so she goes. She meets Livewire, and she then meets Miss Good. So Good sees Lois and goes like, "That bitch." All right, and she goes in and she tries to kill Lois, but she hates Lois because way back in the turbulent, stressful era of Brian Michael Bendis on Superman, she was working for the Invisible Mafia, hired to kill Superman, or to find out a way to kill Superman, and she got arrested for it. All right, and she's always hated Lois. You know what? I'm not gonna lie. I was sort of intrigued by the Invisible Mafia storyline. I was, but the problem is, budget was getting a bit tight, and Brian Michael Bendis' Superman was not appealing to me that much. I may go back to this Invisible Mafia storyline, but it shan't be today. So anyway, Lois, thinking like, we need some help here, goes to free up Livewire, and Livewire puts the hurt on Red Mist, Red Cloud, go from there, and they get her locked up, and apparently impressed. She's like, "We're still down for the interview," and she's like, actually, and Lois goes, "Actually, I have something else in mind." She says, "We mouthy broads got to stick together," and I think that is sort of interesting. The relationship between Lois and Livewire. These two have not necessarily been enemies, but they have not been friends. And I think in this moment here, we're sort of seeing the sort of camaraderie sort of form there. Courtesy of Steve Lombard being a douchebag. But anyway, so Superman has dealt with Toyman. He's like, you know what? That didn't quite feel like Toyman. I'm going to see what's going on here. Track down Toyman. Toyman's been held hostage. Like, this was all a part of a bigger plan, man. I would not use my mech if I wasn't there. Meanwhile, the Data Planet archives, they are searching for any sort of interview or any sort of reporting done on Lex as a superhero, and they seem to have found something there, and we then cut to, is it Lisa or is it Cat? Have I been getting them mixed up? Anyway, so we see a little patrol and suicide slum, and they meet Marilyn Moonlight, and she sort of acts like, hey, it is Grant, it is Cat Grant, and she's talking, hey, like, so, Miss Marilyn Moonlight, nothing's known about you or why you would, be in the shadows, like, why have you tried to help, what brings you here, like, why are you doing? And she's like, because the Metropolis has never felt safe for me. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? You've got Moonlight guns. Like, what do you mean never felt safe? I mean, if you don't feel safe, if superpowered people aren't safe in Metropolis, then you may be worse than Gotham City. Alright? Because there's nothing outside of radiation that the Joker can do to Superman. Alright? Physically to Superman. Same with Penguin, same with Zaz, same with Bane, same with Ivy, same with Two-Face, same with Firefly. It's like, well, we tried. Anyway, so Kat gets this because, she's lost someone recently in Metropolis, so she doesn't feel safe. So she wants that interview, and at the end of it all, we come to the end of the night. We got our Livewire interview, shocking news with Livewire. Cat Grant interviews Marilyn Moonlight. We've got a whole bunch of new directions for the Daily Planet. All these new stories coming in from reporters going outside their comfort zone, and I like it. So anyway, Superman comes back, dons on his clothes again. Because remember, as far as anyone knew, Clark was on deep cover, i.e. he was Superman. So they found out that Perry is running for mayor. But the question is, Perry was the one that did the interviews, or at least I don't think the story implies that that they know Perry's running for mayor. But they do know that Perry was the one who did the reporting on Lex's Superman. So that means that realistically, Lex approached Perry, and some sort of deal was made to get Perry to bury the stories. So I think that's an interesting idea because Perry's always been viewed as this bastion of journalistic integrity. So the question is, what made him bury the story? Is there some secret Perry's got? Is there some sort of blackmail? Was Perry forced to bury the story? We don't quite know, but we'll find out. Meanwhile, it turns out the Farm Brothers have taken Lobo, the main man himself, and they're trying to study his body. Alright? And they're trying to figure out exactly what he can do, or how his body works. And it turns out, as it mentions, And for those who don't know, Lobo killed all his people, the Caesarians, or Khazarians. Caesarian? Khazarians? Zarians? Something Zarian, something Aryans. And it turns out that may not be true. As the comic ends with turning out, Brainiac has it in a bottle. Because of course he does. This is also should be where we end the Gallifrey story in Doctor Who. Like, just put it in a snow globe, in the TARDIS, go from there. Which means we can never destroy the TARDIS. And that's how the comic ends. Ultimately, I think the Superman Annual, I think, does a great job of setting up other stories, helping us understand other characters. I think it should have been longer. Because, let's see here. Let's go a couple pages in. I don't know how this happened. But anyway. Here we've got Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Cat Grant, Trish Q, Mina Oga, Erica Edge, Roy Troop, Lisa Lombard and Steve Lombard. So, I thought we could have seen a whole story with all of them. And we do try to get all of them in there, digging for info. But at the same time, it did feel a bit weird. Is she wearing Crocs? Yeah, I wouldn't have her leave either way. City of Secrets, I think, does a great job of selling you Metropolis and why the Daily Planet is a place worth keeping. Alright? And as well as Lois as the editor-in-chief, because she hasn't had much to do in this story. Because last couple of issues were about, Parasite and what Lex is doing. Superman and Lex working together was never going to be a throwaway story. Like, no, this is the story of the century here. Ultimately, though, this was all fun. It's sad our weak point was Dark Knights of Steel, but on a positive note, on a weirdly positive note, because if we look at the stories here, the weakest story was one with Batman. Now, I love Batman. He's like my favorite DC hero. Yeah. But it always sort of sits bad with me when the only thing DC can say is, look at all these Batman books we have. Look at all this. Look what we're doing with Batman now. Teen Titans, no Batman inside. There's a reference to Robin being a Bat-Narc, but that's part of the course. Superman, by default, it'd be weird if he was here. Honestly, looking at this story here, what I would really like, is a Gotham Central version of Metropolis, of the Daily Planet. Because I think that'd be a really cool idea to see these different journalists going through what they have to deal with, in a place like Metropolis, getting stories, getting the facts. Give some great moments to Steve Lombard. Like, yeah, he's a douchebag, but he understands like the unifying power of sports and how everyone can sort of come together. Cat Grant, the entertainment. How gossip works. Like, how Trish Q has to sort of balance out, gossip and other stuff. Was trying to convince that there is some legitimacy to that. How politics work, how crime works, all of that. I think that's a really good story that maybe wouldn't rival something like like Gotham Central, but I think it's worth exploring. Do I have to? Because when Greg Rucka did Lois Lane, I read that first issue and I wasn't feeling that's the direction of gone. I think he should have gone full Daily Planet and gone from there. Or maybe I'll just have to give Lois that book another try. Either way, that's it. So anyway, with that in mind, this brings the video to close. If you're new to the Bucket Think Tank, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. Check out some of my videos, and I'll catch you all later. This is the Bucket Think Tank signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.